was reflecting earlier today on how we give away our power sometimes and feel as though we need someone else to help us figure things out. And I was wondering what reinforces that, where does that come from, and what's our resistance to guiding ourselves. I was thinking about how it can really appease another person's ego to be the one that helps you, and so that can be a reinforcement in itself. There's a parental dynamic in which we are the child when we don't know something, and then the other person becomes the parent. And when we really are children, there are things that we don't know, don't understand, and need help. But when we become adults and are making choices about our life and so forth, I think that by the time we get there, there's a pattern established where it feels like love, it feels like affection to get guidance and to get direction from another person, because that association was made as a child. And so this can carry on beyond its usefulness, because when you think about it, you're the only person that has access to all of your thoughts, all of your feelings, and you know so much more about your experience of being a person than anyone else does. And so ultimately you're the source. And even if you go to a professional helper, a therapist, counselor, or whatever, or personal coach or whatever, there is bias involved in the other person's guidance. Even though a therapist is trained to not let their personal bias and values play into the process, I think it oftentimes does creep in, because just what is reinforced, even if it's a subtle thing of the tone of the voice or whatever, there can be some influence, and you can fall into a childlike pattern in which you want to appease your healer by doing what they want you to do, and you're the child, they're the parent. So even though I think it's helpful to receive consultations sometimes and interact with people and process about things with friends or whoever, it can also be a way of getting away from your self-trust. And ultimately, I think that's what we have to move towards as individuals and as a species. We have to become an expert on ourselves and not fall into a dynamic of doubting ourselves in order to feel connected to another person, because it feels connecting to share vulnerably about one's confusion and get guidance and so forth. But any guidance that we receive from outside of ourselves, I think ultimately it has to feel good on a bodily level. We have to trust our intuition, because we're the ones that know ourselves, and so it's important to break any habits of going into doubt in order to have contact with another person or feel connected to other people and so forth. It's helpful, I think, sometimes to just sit with something, and even if it feels like a struggle, the confusion and conflictedness of a situation that we're in, that's how we grow, and that's how we hold our power and learn to remain comfortable with holding our power. There can be a fear, perhaps, that it can be isolating to just have that power and to know who you are and do your own thing, and like it's somehow disconnecting, but it actually allows us to connect with others in an authentic way when we stay in touch with our own power and feel comfortable with who we are. Another dynamic I was thinking about in relationship to giving away power is how there's a subculture of BDSM, bondage disciplines, sadism, masochism, where there's a kind of master and servant, parent-child, whatever dynamic. And I don't think that that tends to be healthy. I mean, if you have an urge to explore something, then you're going to explore it. And sometimes it's better to just go through something and experience it. But there can be an addictive element, I think, to that kind of dynamic in which you are comfortable in the child role or in the parent role, and it can thwart your own personal evolution, because I believe ultimately we are here to understand ourselves, make our own choices, not give away our power to another person or to have power over another person. That can be something that feeds the ego. And I think that people that get into those roles and identify with that community, they can perhaps enjoy the kind of structure of that, because life can feel a little chaotic and confusing. And so if you have a kind of rigid identity or role, that can help you to feel like you know who you are and life makes more sense and so forth. But I think it's better to struggle with the ambivalence of life and to figure things out for yourself, and to maintain a balance within yourself in terms of your yin and yang energy, and get comfortable with your power, and also get comfortable with not having power over other people. You are ultimately the expert on yourself, and I believe that's the direction that we're headed in as a species, is becoming beings that are more and more comfortable with knowing ourselves really well and making choices that come from that awareness of who we are. Thanks for listening.